Well, hello. Right. Gaisa Gishkoya Capinicius at Tansei, Tenishi, Bonjour, Bonjour, Oki, Hola. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us again for this next installment in the Spring Virtual Workshop Series. If I didn't say hello in a way that speaks to your heart and connects with you, please feel free to say hi in the chat or just say hi, hello anyway. You're all welcome here, and we're so grateful to spend this lovely Tuesday afternoon or evening with you. Here we are, we've got some spring sounds on the go. I'm going to start sharing my screen so we can dive in to the magic of this session. So believe it or not, I can't really believe it's already the 29th of April, but here we are, we're in, and we are doing science, technology, engineering and math learning outdoors, and we've got a really fantastic duo to share with us today. I'm joining you from the banks of Sinquinhuiqua, the Swift River in Insulchin, colonially known as the Columbia River. It's Sinixt territory, and the reason I'm taking this picture is I was very fortunate enough to find out I've got some funding to do this amazing video podcast about the voices of this place. And I called my Sinixt elder, Shelley Boyd, Prasa is her Indigenous name, and she talked about a place. And I said to her, what do you want to talk about? What's important to you to share? And the first thing she did was talk about salmon, and was to talk about the importance of salmon and our fish relatives, and then our bird relatives, and all of the people that rely on that. And that was the first time I feel like I'd spoken to someone about an interview, and rather than talk about themselves and their needs, they spoke about the needs of another member of the ecosystem. And that for me was like sitting really with me strongly on the Indigenous knowledge and the Indigenous way of being, of caring for all, and putting humans within that as opposed to on top of it. So that was a beautiful lesson that happened this week for me. This river also dissects right through Chukwetmagulu, and the territory down south of the Okanagan, who push up this way, and the Tlachafa First Nations are at the headwaters of this river that you see here. And I have many mentors and have heard wonderful stories and lessons from them as well. I'm very grateful for them. If you are interested in more Indigenous learning, we have some incredible things coming up. The final session in our Medicine of Stories with Leona Prince, incredible author, powerful sharer of knowledge, will be with us May 29th. You can sign up at outdoorlearning.com/event. And May, the inimitable Monique Gray Smith is coming back to do Braiding Sweetgrass as a course. It's in meeting format. We're face to face. We're spending time in conversation around her adaptation of Dr. Rodman Mortimer's Braiding Sweetgrass, and it is a delight for the senses and how you can take that into your classrooms and embed Indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and the teaching of plants. It's quite fantastic. So we hope you'll join us. And last but not least, we are a go for the fourth season of Four Seasons of Indigenous Learning. This is our cyclical and seasonal multi-year truth and reconciliation training. We have a new set of incredible live gathering guests sharing different diverse Indigenous voices with us. And then there is a movement through different trainings from season 1 of basics and understanding up to season 4, which will be all about reconciliation and how you can take that into your everyday life. So we invite you to join us. It's a special place to be. Always grateful to have this incredible woman working with me, supporting me, doing amazing work. Hello.
Oh my gosh. That's such a nice intro. My name's Rachel. I'm from Take Me Outside, and on behalf of our organization and the other 30 plus outdoor learning partners, we're very excited to be here tonight. I'm joining you from Treaty 1 territory, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Innuak, and Dakota, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Manitoba, where I reside, is also the traditional land of the Inishwaak and Dene people. Just wanted to share that we have recently relaunched our outdoor learning certification program, made some updates and revamped the course. But we've also recently launched it in French. So if you are a French educator, we now have a course that is entirely in French, developed for outdoor French educators. So if you want to learn more or are interested in checking the course out, you can check that out on our website. And I will pop the link in the chat and hand it back over to Jade.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That is very exciting. And we know we have lots of French educators always looking for resources and support. So we hope to see many of you in there. Okay, I wish we could see all your beautiful faces, but of course we are in webinar mode because, over 3,000 of you signed up to be in this space and to show your dedication to building your outdoor learning practice. And I wish we could see each and every one of you, but webinars make that a little easier than in the meeting mode. So I have a little poll for you. We'll see who we've got. There's 2 questions there. And there it is. What kind of educator are you and where you're joining? We did have a heavy North America, or what some people call Turtle Island, focus on the areas. But if you are in the rest of the world, please feel free to share in the chat because there are limited boxes that you're allowed to write. Fantastic. We'll just let that. I think we've got 250 people here live. Fantastic. Okay, we'll just leave that open for another 3, 2, 1. Gonna end that poll, share the results. Okay, what do we got? Okay, every kind of educator idea of that we could imagine, and those even who are not strictly educators but are passionate about learning. Brilliant. And we have some representation from across our continent, and someone's coming in from somewhere else in the world. We hope to see you in the chat and let us know how far flung this beautiful community and network is reaching. But let's continue on moving into the meat and potatoes, or the vegan meat and potatoes, if that's your vibe. We do this work with over 100 outdoor learning partners. Some of them are international, some of them are Canadian, some of them from the US, state or province specific, and all of them are dedicated to supporting you in your outdoor learning practice. So we hope that you will check out our partner page if you're in need of funding or resources or support. We're grateful for each and every one of them for being a part of our community and our family. And we've tried through the Outdoor Learning School and Store and our key partner of Take Me Outside and all of those friends there to create a sort of one-stop shop for you to get tools, equipment, resources, professional learning. And so we're so grateful for you. All right, we're in. The good stuff's coming. I'm ready. It is STEAM Learning Outdoors, and we have the phenomenal Rachel Tidd and Katie Zajac here together. I'm going to introduce them both, and then Katie's going to share first, followed by Rachel, and then we'll have time for some Q&A at the end, folks. Please stay right to the end as well, because there's always prizes, as you know. And before I get into this, I always forget to do this because I get a bit excited. But if you want to share your appreciation, a couple of people found the react button. It might be in your bottom toolbar, obvious, saying react, and you can send some emojis to the screen, or it might be under more with 3 dots. Yes, someone's found it. Yay, welcome. It just lets them know you're here and we're all together. If it's helpful for you, under that more button, you might also find transcript or closed captions, depending which version of Zoom you're running. So if it's helpful for you to have a closed caption transcript go across the screen, that is in there for you as well. This is being recorded. It will be live tomorrow. You'll get a link in your follow-up email. Along with any resources shared. So check that, look for that in your inbox. And if it's not there by 12 p.m. Pacific tomorrow, please have a check in your spam and we're hopefully there. You can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your bar to ask some questions. We won't possibly get to all of them with 250 people, depending on how many questions come in. But if you can use that, we'll do our best to do that at the end of the 2 presentations. Okay, now, Rachel Tidd. is passionate about using outdoor and place-based learning to enhance literacy and math instruction. She's the author of the book Wild Learning: Practical Ideas for Bringing Teaching Outdoors, which is now a Bible for me in my own teaching practice and being outdoors, and is inspired so many of the educators that I have interacted with. There's also a wild math and wild reading curricula as well. Rachel is a former elementary special education teacher. She's got a master's in ed in elementary and special education, and she's a doctoral candidate at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, when her research is focused on integrating English language arts with sustainability literacy. It's always hands-on, it's always interesting and inspiring, and we can't wait to hear you share. Now, Katie Zajac is the Environmental Education Engagement Manager for Green Learning. This is a group that we've been partnered with for years now and have seen their amazing resources and virtual opportunities inspire so many different action projects and things to do with classrooms. Katie has a background in conservation and biodiversity, experience in the environmental sector and event coordination, conservation planning, and has worked both with Canadian and global species. Passion for the environment, spending out time in nature and safeguarding species at risk, alongside motivating people for a sustainable future. It's all linking together here, is what motivates her to share her knowledge with others. And we are so grateful to have you both here to share your expertise. And with that, I shall stop sharing and pass it over to you, Katie. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jade. Okay, let's share my screen. All right. Perfect. Okay, you guys can see my screen okay? Perfect.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, perfect. So hi everyone, and thank you to Jade and the OLSS team for having me. As Jade mentioned, my name is Katie and I'm the Environmental Education Engagement Manager here at Green Learning. And I'm so excited to be here to talk to you guys all about taking STEAM learning outdoors and to share some of our different resources, activities, and challenges that are really great in incorporating into your lessons and getting students outdoors, connecting with the land, and learning about different energy sources. So to begin, I wanted to start with a land acknowledgement. I'm based here in Toronto, Ontario on Treaty 13, and I feel very fortunate to live, work, and be presenting from the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. And these lands are now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. So for those of you who may not be as familiar with Green Learning or the work that we do, I just want to tell you a little bit about our organization here. And Green Learning, we create free online education programs, and they all focus on either energy, climate change, or the green economy. So all of our programs and resources are completely free to use, and we really work to support the engagement of students and to empower students to use their voice. We really want them to use their voice to create some sort of positive change within their school or their community. So as I mentioned, I'm going to take you through a couple different resources, programs, and challenges that we have here where you can really engage your students and encourage them to use their voice to take climate action in an outdoor setting. So one of our wonderful resources that Green Learning was very proud of in supporting through the Climate Action 150 program, which focuses on youth-led action, is this book, Selah and the Land. And this is a fabulous children's book. If you have not heard of it, definitely check it out. It's a fabulous children's book written by 3 inspirational Indigenous women, Ariana Roundpoint, Shelby Angelic, and Lindsay Dupre, and it was illustrated by the talented Hallie Finney, and it explores how our land is so important and what we can learn from it through Indigenous teachings. And it follows a young girl who interacts with animals, plants, elements, and it provides us with all these lessons about respecting and protecting the land for future generations. And it also focuses on that intergenerational knowledge, cultural identity, and shared responsibility for us to care for the earth. So it's a beautifully written book that can actually be picked up on the Outdoor Learning School and Store website. So definitely check that out. And along with this book, here at Green Learning, we have a whole wide variety of activities that are associated with CELA and the land. And these activities are more targeted for those in grades 1 to 8. And the one activity I do want to highlight is our climate justice and action through art activity. And this activity is completely free, so anyone has access to it. All you have to do is create a free account. And through this activity, the outdoor environment meets student creativity. So students get to explore their outdoor environment. So this could be exploring their schoolyard, or it could be exploring another outdoor space available. And students will be able to identify different textures in the environment, and they can go and collect all the different materials that are found within their environment. And these materials could either be natural or they could be unnatural. But then learners will come together as one and they get to share what they've found. And then once they've taken those findings, they can then actually create 3D art. So our idea behind this is that learners become the artist, you as educators are that art curator, and the outdoor environment is the gallery. We want students to really be creative and create a piece that incorporates texture into the story of art. And we want to provide learners with this opportunity to draw and make connections between materials and textures that exist in the natural environment, and to use those things to create art that tells a story or sends a message. We really want them to use that aspect of storytelling. And like I said, students may come across different natural or unnatural materials. So unnatural materials like plastic, and they may incorporate those into their art pieces. But this is also a really great opportunity in order to discuss pollution and the importance of sustainability. And it's a great way for students to really reflect on the land and understand the importance of respecting and protecting our environment and the land around them. So definitely a really important resource. The book itself is wonderful, and to go along with it, we have all of these different resources that relate back to the book. So as I said, that activity was more for grades 1 to 8, but we do have here at Green Learning a whole bunch of different challenges that really work to engage learners that are for more targeted grades 3 to 12. And at Green Learning, we have about 5 different challenges that cover all different environmental topics. But the one that I wanted to share with you is our Re-Energy Challenge. And this focuses more on a technical aspect on students becoming energy engineers. So it's a STEAM-based challenge that provides students with an opportunity to actually build working models of different renewable energy technologies and to understand how these different forms of energy are created. So I'm going to share with you a couple of the different areas here where you can actually take your students outdoors to teach them even more about solar energy, electrical energy, and wind energy, and turn their knowledge into action by building these models to help students actually understand how using natural environments can work to help create clean energy. So the first one I wanted to focus on is solar energy, and what better way to teach students outdoors and to explore solar energy than to explore it in its most natural form, using the sun. So in really being able to visually understand that concept behind solar energy, students would have an opportunity through this challenge to build a solar car or a solar oven. And these can be built in so many different settings or environment, but what's really fun is being able to actually test them and take them outdoors to help students discover how the sun's light energy can be converted into heat or kinetic energy. So if we're thinking about converting light energy into heat energy, the model that I would suggest is looking at a solar oven. And by building a solar oven, students are exposed to all the different components that will allow the light energy to be converted into heat energy. So students in making these solar ovens will create reflectors, they'll create a baking chamber, and they can actually visually see how those reflectors help to funnel light toward the baking chamber. And then they'll also be able to further understand how the dark color of the baking chamber attracts and traps much more heat compared to, say, a light colored chamber. And if you wanted to take it another step further, students can also measure the temperature of the solar oven at different intervals and at different times of day to see that power and really understand the power of solar energy. And what's really fun about this outdoor model is learners can test the solar oven, and we've had students actually test it using small pizzas, where they put a small pizza into the chamber and they watch as the solar energy converts it into heat and starts to kind of warm up the pizza. They could also use it to watch as water heats up. So you can see in the photo in the left-hand corner at the bottom of the screen there's 3 students there who are taking part in the Re-Energy Challenge, where they built this solar oven model and are now testing it outside to see how it works. But then if you're looking for ways to help students really understand solar energy being converted into kinetic energy, then we have our solar car model. And by building these, students can visually see how light energy is converted into kinetic energy to make the model move. So using that direct sunlight and determining the best angle of the solar panel, learners can work to really increase and decrease the speed of the car. And all of these, I guess, renewable energy technologies do come with guides on our website that are all completely free. So next is looking at electrical energy and making electrical energy fun. And a really neat component in teaching about electrical energy is looking at electric vehicles. So getting students outdoors to do a comparison of an electric vehicle versus an internal combustion engine vehicle or a gas powered vehicle, to really understand the different components that make up each of those systems, and then applying that knowledge to build their own electric vehicle model. So it could be a small model, or it could be an even larger model. Here at Green Learning, we do have an Electrifying the Future program, and this is where students have an opportunity to work on converting a gas-powered car into an electric vehicle to really understand how electrical energy is produced. So you can see the one photo of the student there on the screen. She is welding a car, and that's actually the current ongoing Electrifying the Future project here in Ontario, where students are converting a Miata into an electric vehicle. And this project was actually first piloted last year in Alberta. And then the other photo there you can see is of a student that helped to work on creating an electric vehicle golf cart. So in creating these models, it really helps to demonstrate that process of creating electrical energy. And the model can be as big or small as you would like. And once again, we have all of these guides on our site to help guide your class in creating this. And then I wanted to touch on teaching learners about wind energy and the importance behind wind energy in building a wind turbine. And so by having students build a wind turbine, they're able to really discover how this renewable energy technology can help to generate energy in a renewable and sustainable way. So learners that build their model can then go and test the model by holding the wind turbine up into the wind to watch as it turns and understand how speed changes depending on how much wind there is. And it's a really great outdoor activity to help explain the amount of electricity produced by high and low wind speeds and how they vary. And then in further understanding wind energy, students are able to explore how the sun also contributes to creating surface wind to power a wind turbine. So you can see the photo in the bottom is a student who was participating in our Re-Energy Challenge and has actually built this wind turbine. And once again, we do have the resources on our site to help walk you guys through how you can do this with your students. And all of these models that I have shown you as part of our Re-Energy Challenge are a really great way to step outdoors to understand how these different sources of clean energy are generated. Plus, you can always bring in the art aspect. So having your students get as creative as they would like in designing their models, in using different materials. It's a really great hands-on engaging way for students to really understand that aspect of clean energy. So I just wanted to say thank you for listening to this part of the session. If you do have any questions, my email is there on the screen. You are feel free to reach out to me at katie@greenlearning.ca. I do have a few QR codes there up on the screen. One is for Selah and the Land. This will provide you with all of our resources for Selah and the Land, and definitely check out the book on outdoor learning, school and store. It's a really great story to incorporate into your classroom, and then to be able to go outside and really allow students to connect with the land. And then we have our Re-Energy Challenge QR code there. I do encourage you to register your class now. This registrations and submissions are still open. So if you've had a past science fair or eco club or classroom project or some sort of STEM showcase, your class can still submit their projects to that and really understand how these models work. So submissions are due May 9th. So you still have time to get projects in. And then there's a QR code to our Electrifying the Future project in case you wanted to learn a bit more about electric vehicles and electrical energy. But now I will pass it over to Rachel.
Thanks, Katie. Let me just share my screen. All right. And get my screen over here. So you can see that, I'm hoping. All right. That was so wonderful. I loved seeing all those. I'm a big science geek and sustainability. So that is definitely up my alley. I did my STEAM Learning Outdoors, which won't surprise those of you that are familiar with some of my work, with an emphasis on the M and a lot of E too, lots of engineering. So I will start quickly with a land acknowledgement from where I am coming from you, also on the East Coast. I'd like to acknowledge that the land where I live and work exists within the unceded territory of the Guyacono, which is part of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy near Ithaca, New York. I like to think about all the gifts that the land gives me, including the inspiration for my work and some of the work that you're going to see here on these slides. I have two prompts for you that I'm going to share. Prompts are projects. They're more like projects. One is based on nests, and I got some requests to also provide some ideas for outdoor learning in the more urban context, and so the human-built context. So there's one about redesigning parking lots that I'm actually pretty I think it's really fun. And most of these can be done with all ages. You just kind of have to modify them in different ways. And so we're going to start with bird nests, and kids of all ages, including adults, are super interested in birds. Birds are super diverse and really interesting. And when you niche down and look at bird nests, you realize they are engineering marvels. And they have lots of opportunities to learn about math and engineering together. And think about, how do birds build such intricate nests with only their beaks and feet? And when you're doing this, we're using our hands, which is kind of cheating. And so thinking about, how do they do this? We're having trouble because it's harder than it looks. I recently did this with some upper elementary students, and they're like, oh, this is going to be so easy. And I was like, really? And then I even had one kid cry. So it can be hard if they're really putting a lot of pressure on themselves, but it's harder than it looks. If you really want to challenge your students, you can have them use chopsticks as their beak. But before I jump into the activities, I always recommend, because I'm a big language literacy person as well, is that you connect your outdoor learning with building background knowledge through texts and text sets. So whether you're going in and out and repeatedly, a lot of these require a couple of times outside, that you're also building on that knowledge and connecting to that knowledge through a text set. And so this slide has a bunch of photos of different books. There's 4 books that are for younger kids that would build knowledge from easiest to larger or harder, and reinforce that vocabulary. There's also bird nest field guides, which people don't really realize, but they exist to help you identify bird nests and who made those nests. And those are really fascinating to look at, as well as the Smithsonian Handbook of Interesting Bird Nests. And those 2 resources are super interesting for all ages and can build students' knowledge about nests. So challenge 1 is building a strong nest. And this one, everyone starts with the same nest platform. So I used paper cups in this one, but whatever you want to like balance these 3 sticks, you need 3 sticks for each group or each pair of students working. And then they need to build a nest on that platform. And that nest needs to be strong. And you're going to be testing that with weights or rocks that are similar size and density to see whose is stronger. And that's really tougher than it looks. You'd be surprised, but it's really fun to see their creativeness of materials and which ones they choose. Um, I suggest you have them discuss or create a worksheet in their groups and have them discuss these questions and then share out at the end. But thinking about what materials worked best in this challenge, did you use materials for different parts? How did you construct your nest? What was your method? What was your strategy? And what materials did you start with and why? Because you'll find that when they're working, you need to start with stronger, more rigid materials like sticks at the bottom to hold your nest. And that's all engineering and density and thinking about the type of material you're using for the purpose. And thinking about how birds do that as well. The math part is really in the nest dimensions and understanding its weight and capacity. And so all ages can measure the diameter of the nest and the depth of the nest, the height, and as well as how big the center part of holding the eggs is. Older kids can then calculate the volume of the nest and subtract the middle by using the equation for the volume of a cylinder. And that's working measurement, geometry, and algebraic equations if you do the volume. And then, so much of our day-to-day math involves understanding data and reading graphs and interpreting data. And so I really push a lot of data when I'm talking to teachers about integrating math. And so compiling our data of all of our group's nests and how much weight they held, as well as their height and their diameter. And if you did volume, you could do that too. And then having kids think about it and looking at it for patterns or trends. Asking them, do you think there's a relationship between the size of the nests and the weight it could hold? And depending on their nests and how they're constructed, there may or may not, but just thinking about that way is correlation, and it's a super important math skill, as well as ratios. So the ratio of the size of the nest versus the weight it's held. And even if we're not calculating that, we are comparing those and estimating. The second one is going to probably require more time or several times outside. And this is looking at different nest sites. And so here, a group is going to explore 4 different sites to build a nest. And these are kind of based on similar real life ways or places that birds might build a nest. And so the first one is a picture of a Y stick, and that is vertical, it's horizontal. And so that represents kind of like a flat branch. The second picture is that a similar Y stick, but this one is on an angle. This is actually a very challenging way to build a nest. The third one is a more vertical kind of like with 3 branches with a cup. And that was also a very challenging nest to build because the other methods you used previously don't really work in that situation. It requires a little bit of weaving or creative materials. And the last one is building like on a post or a platform. And this is actually just a piece of firewood that we used as our platform. But this is, you have a solid middle, which is different, but if the materials extend out beyond there, you have to balance. And so it does limit the size of your nest in how you balance your materials. So all different things you have to think about. And I would have kids do each one of these on a different day and then take some notes about what was hard and what was not, exploring these questions, thinking about what the best place to build a nest is, why at the end of it. What are the advantages and disadvantages to the different nest locations? Some are easier than others, but they have advantages and disadvantages, right? Some are going to be stronger. Some places are more common. Some are going to be farther away from predators, like on the top of a pole. What were the different materials or building techniques needed for different locations? You had to use different things, and why did you have to use them? And what do you think how did the birds figure this out? And how did the location affect the shape and the size? And so thinking about how those could affect your design at the end. So these were the finished nests of these particular sites. And you can see the flat one was really big and messy. The angled one is the next one, and that was also messy. That was very hard to balance all of those things. The one with the vertical one ended up using very different materials to make that work. And then the post one was really small and cute and balanced on top of that post. So same thing here. I suggest making data, and you can also compare this to your other data of the other nest sites, looking at each nest type, the height, the diameter, the weight, and weight held. And that's really going to vary on that type of nest. And talking about which one they think was the most successful, which one, if they were a bird, would they choose. So that's my nests. That one was really a lot of fun. The second idea I have is more in the human environment, but it can be really done anywhere that there's a parking lot, including your school parking lot. And the idea is to look at our parking lots and think of if we could improve them. So first, we're thinking about how many cars couldn't fit here in the existing parking lot. Is it efficient? Could it fit more? Does it need to fit more? Are we using the space wisely? What could make this parking lot nicer? Do we need more greenery or trees? Do we want to encourage more biking by having more bike parking? What about electric cars, car chargers? What about reducing our pavement to reduce the heat island effect, if you've talked to your students about that, or maybe they've just experienced it, and reducing runoff as well. We want that rainwater to percolate into our soil. Can we design a better parking lot? And that starts with gathering data and creating a map. So you have kids go out and measure the parking lot, the perimeter, working together to measure that entire perimeter and create maps of the parking lot. They're also going to need to measure the perimeter in the area of the regular spaces, as well as spaces for people with disabilities, because those have different space requirements. They should think about the design. Are the spaces straight or are they angled? And why might they be that way? What are the advantages? And what is the maximum number of cars you can fit? And this is a really great one to do with young kids with actual manipulatives like toy cars or blocks that stand in the way for cars, with your map to try to figure out the best way to orient that parking lot. And maybe you don't want to maximize it, but knowing the maximum is a good place to start. And this is going to take probably several times. This is going to be an investigation to go outside over and over to gather different types of information, most likely. But it's a really powerful exercise. So then once they've made their map, and that's, for older kids to scale, which is also in our provincial curriculum. But we want to think about, okay, here's what it is, but what could we do to make this better and redesign this parking lot? And these are some pictures that I pulled from the internet of various green parking lots that have added trees and made permeable, even with grass growing through them, and even a parking lot with lots of green growing on the side of it, which I thought was really cool. But you want to prompt kids to think about what might we want to include in our design to improve this parking lot? What could we do to make it look more like a park if that's what we want? How could we reduce the amount of pavement but still park the cars that need to be here for the teachers that get to school, for example? Think about the needs of the community and the people and the location. If it's underutilized, maybe we can do something better with that extra space. Or if we want to encourage more bikes, or people are biking but there's nowhere to put them, that could be something that we work into our design. Thinking too is, do we need more trash cans? Do we need trash cans? Do we need lighting? All of these things. But they need to start dreaming big and start dreaming up a new improved parking lot. Then they need to show the ideas. So drawing them out, using their measurements to help make this to scale as well, especially those older learners, that's really important. Younger learners, I've had a lot of success with building the parking lot with blocks and building a model. And this does take time, and it will take space where you can keep that. And so they can keep working on that model. But older kids often really love to do this with recyclable materials or cardboard and making that model. They can also estimate costs. So this is a real activity that can be scaled for upper or lower grades. And there's so much math. Scales are scaling 2D, 3D shapes and representations of those from going from 2D to 3D, area, perimeter, budget, money, it's all here. And then I really encourage you to make space for the kids to share their ideas with each other, as well as, if possible, with other people in their community or their school, to give them some kind of an authentic audience. So maybe other teachers or the principal or community members or even parents. But when we give kids authentic audiences, their learning becomes more meaningful and authentic, and they're more motivated and engaged. To prepare them for that, you might want to have them also prepare some ideas that are a little bit more realistic and more doable if their ideas are really elaborate. Things like trash cans, adding planters, benches, bike racks, maybe first steps to improving their local parking lot. And I think that would be a really successful thing in a lot of places, that if they're taking interest in their local community and hopefully making small positive changes. Those are my two ideas for bringing STEAM outside with an emphasis on the M and the E. So thank you for listening. Here's my contact information if you have any questions or follow-ups. And I have a very active social media, which it would be great if you followed me, and I post ideas like this often. So.
Wow. My goodness. I'm reeling. And I know, yes, I'm familiar with both of the work that you're doing, and it's still knocked me for six about how much action you can take with students, how involved they can be. And I really like what you finished with there, Rachel, of saying, like, when they feel empowered, then the learning is more meaningful and they really engage with it. And Katie, seeing those projects come to fruition where students have just really made a difference, and then how positive that must be for them and their learning and lives. And thank you to both of you for creating resources in different ways that make that accessible for educators to do this and to remove barriers. Whoa, just magic. There's a lot going on in the world right now. Without going too deep into it, it's stressful, and I have a lot of big feelings, and I know that a lot of the people joining us in various ways, shapes and forms have those feelings too, whether or not it's linked to politics or whether it's just generally links to the climate and the way our world is. And when I sit in these spaces, like, my cup is filled. I feel genuinely so optimistic and so empowered and excited, and seeing the messages stream in. Yeah, people, big talk, real talk, big, huge feelings, but above of just people saying, thank you. Oh my gosh, what an amazing idea. And then, like, the art teacher riffing off of that, like, oh my goodness. And then I could design a bird that would fit in those nests. Oh my goodness. And people, yeah, magic. Okay, we're going to have a couple of questions. Please keep them coming, because these two presenters packed in an enormous amount of information into designated time spots and didn't go over. So we've actually got time for questions for once in our life. I just want to applaud you both, because I don't do that well ever. So when I'm presenting, so pleased that you're here. So please keep those questions coming in. Rachel's collecting them and pop them in. But Katie, solar oven question. Someone asked, is there any good range of temperature that's needed for the solar oven? Is it something you can do in winter, or do you need a particular temperature? And sorry if you can hear my dog, I'm going to mute.
That's okay. Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yeah, no, you can definitely do this in the winter too. As long as the sun is shining, you can definitely take your solar oven outside and test it. It's actually it would actually be kind of neat to be able to see how it varies from like the springtime to like vary based on season. It would actually be even really cool if you could do it consecutive years so that you could see how is the climate changing, right? How is that temperature changing over time? So, yeah, I would definitely do that.
Amazing. And as well, within that, those like solar learning, within those re-energy activities and things, there's all the information about everything that you need, right, to make that happen. And
Yes, everything is there. They come with the challenge packages. I can send you the challenge package so that you can you can include it in your email, Jade. But basically the challenge package comes with everything that you need to know about how to build a solar oven. There's videos on how to do it, on the different materials, and you can make it your own. You can use what we've guided you with, but you can students can make it their own. Like we want them to make it their own. So yeah, but everything is laid out and everything is completely free.
fantastic. I'm going to come to you, Rachel, and then we'll just dance back and forth as those questions come in. Somebody said, thank you for addressing the social emotional learning aspect. Have you ever had the parking lot activity trigger like eco grief or some negative feelings when they're in that space?
That's an important question. And I think it could. I haven't because, and this is in the research, because this is kind of in my doctoral research realm. But when we give kids tools and we give them agency to show them to dream in the future and make changes and to see how those changes could impact the future in a positive way, and also that authentic audience and feelings of agency, that gives kids a sense of hope, and can reduce those feelings of eco anxiety. And so when we orient it's really important, and I see a lot in the climate education space that can sometimes overly emphasize the science and not on purpose, but that does bring that eco grief, right? But when you make it more interdisciplinary and think about all of the aspects of sustainability and have kids more actively involved in creating the future, that can really help them see that the small changes we make now can make a difference, and they can have an influence on those changes, and that can really help. That helps.
Fantastic answer. And I'd also like to state that there's another book by one of our amazing authors, Dr. Gillian Judson, called A Walking Curriculum. And within that, there is a lovely and an unlovely walk, for example. And that encourages us to go out into our close learning space and talk about what are the things we find lovely and unlovely, and what could we do to make these unlovely places more lovely. And so greening and all of these things, and then you start that as the emphasis. So talking to them about their feelings, allowing those who do have negative feelings to feel them and express them and share them in circle perhaps, and then saying, right, well, let's do something about it. What small things can we do? This is a model of education that feels like decolonized and feels inspirational. So all the ideas are here. Okay. Ooh, Katie, here for you. Somebody's a postgraduate educator or a higher education human, and they're wondering about thoughts on adapting some of the resources and actually this is for both of you. They talked about the parking lot and bird nest activity as well for maybe community college or a first year university. So I'll start with Katie and then maybe come to Rachel of like, maybe could we scale this?
Yeah, no, definitely. So usually like our resources are for those in like grades 3 to 12, or if you're looking at Seal in the Land 1 to 8, but you can definitely scale it up. I know we had a workshop at one time and we had a university professor attend, and she was going to be using our resources for her students and stuff. They're all activities that you can scale up to a higher level, for whether that's university, whether that's post-university, postgraduate, yeah, you can definitely scale everything up.
And I would say, as someone who does professional learning with educators, with adults, with teachers, that Sea Level and the Land is a fantastic book for helping people to lean into inquiry based question forming and reflection, and it's a really great tool for stimulating some conversations about alternative pedagogies or knowledge systems that we had some really fantastic adult conversations around. So yeah, very exciting that it's all for everyone. Rachel, how about you? Bird's Nest. I mean, I also did a thing with grade 8 BC teachers this week, and they were asking about algebra and equations outdoors, and I use some of your things, but I wonder, grade 8 moving into adults and beyond.
Yeah, so I've done the bird nests with high schoolers, and it was still very challenging for them. And you can always up that data analysis um, too. You can have them calculate things in Excel. You can add that element too when they get back correlation graphs as well as the statistics you can do in Excel. You could really up that. The parking lot in particular, I feel like could be pushed up into early college and college because there's so much design element there. And our standards for older kids would be higher, right? Like, I'm not worried perfect scale in elementary school, but boy, if you're in college, you better have that perfect. And maybe it's even computerized. Maybe you're using CAD. I don't know. And in making a model and researching the budget behind it and adding all of the research element to it. So I feel like all of these could be scaled. And I agree, Jade, I work with a lot of teachers as well. And so I feel like it totally could be scaled for sure.
Oh, you got me so excited. I'm just taken back to my university days of like geographical information systems as well, of making like predictive
Same.
things on behavior based on the different designs and how much it would be utilized. And
Yeah, they could study the place and make a lot of observations of like how people are using the space, how many cars over time. I mean, there's so many things you could do. Um,
and measuring temperature, heat maps of
yes,
has it changed within that space over time when you've changed the land use,
comparing different parking
runoff,
lots.
water runoff. Oh, sorry. So what you shouldn't do is ask questions that get us nerds going. We just keep going. Yeah. Did you have a point, Rachel, or are you
No,
just
I
like,
was just
that's
saying,
me?
I was
Yeah.
agreeing, like, yeah, get Jade and I going and it's over.
Yes, we're going to run out of time. Okay, I think, and back to Katie, because someone asked another question really about would the solar ovens work during snow, because they have bright sun on some snow days, but it might be interesting to go outside in the winter and, like you said, maybe do a comparison.
Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. I would think that it would work the same. You have the sun, you have that solar energy, and it would be able to still filter through those receptors, right, into the chamber. So yeah, I would definitely try that out, and I would also probably try it out in the spring and just to kind of see the comparison. And like I said, even try it in consecutive years so that you're able to actually track to see what's the power of solar energy over the years as the climate is changing.
Absolutely. There's just so much inspiration happening as a result of what you're sharing. Like, you've stimulated so much debate and people thinking, oh, I could do physics here. And Richard saying we could expand the bird's nest to other animal type shelters. And I know for sure I've done a thing where we've used materials to withstand increasing storms of water jugs and sit pads or clipboards being wind, and them talking about how different materials can be resistant, or how we could build with the natural landscape to be more resilient for change and things. And it's really magical that when we unlock the STEAM mind, which I really think they're all so interconnected. But when we lean into that, it is maths, physics, and engineering. There's literacy in there. There's art. There's capacity for social. Like, this is cross curricular learning, like chef's kiss. very exciting stuff. Really just the best. People have done that with building beaver dams as well. Okay, last question before we end, and it is you got people in a nest frenzy, Rachel. I think it's because it's the nest animals are out, and it's like you got people going. But the last person asked, if you had a kindergarten group and you were doing nests, how many days might you work on them? Is this like a one and done, or how do you go about
Yeah,
it?
no, if I had kindergarten, man, I would draw this out as a whole unit. And that's why I showed the text, right? So you could build it into language arts, build your language comprehension, reading comprehension. But I would probably go out and make each one of those nest types on separate days with kindergarteners. I would not try to do all of those things on one day. So the first challenge and then the 4 nest types would be 4 more days. And maybe I'm building kids' knowledge about nests and birds in between that. So I would stretch it out and really make it a rich experience for sure.
Fantastic. My goodness, Katie, Rachel, it's always a pleasure. But I feel particularly energized by this workshop, I have to say. I just love the ideas. I love the way you delivered them, and it is really a treat to have you here. Thank you so much. You know, for those of us like Katie and Green Learning, you know, for those of us who are trying to integrate and see the value of technology within our outdoor learning spaces, for you to cultivate an area that is so accessible for educators to dive into that and then go outside and then come back in and reflect. And Rachel, your resources are, I don't know, they're gold. And it is very grateful to have both of you out there in the world sharing this knowledge. So thank you so much for being with us. It's been an absolute treat. More ideas are coming in. People are just riffing. It's happening. It's very good. Yes, resources and links to like Green Learning's resources and things can all be found in our outdoor learning STEAM category. But now, my friends, it is time. It is time for a little prize giving, because who wants to come to a workshop and not be in with a chance to win a prize? It's like this. It's a bit of a random selection. Get 2 gift cards to the Outdoor Learning Store and 2 gift cards to the Take Me Outside store. So here we go. I'm doing a mad scroll. Okay, the first winner, is Sabrina Nelson. Sabrina with a Z. Nelson, you are our first winner. Congratulations. We will find you and send you an email in the next couple of days. Next winner, Amy, AIMEE. Amy Richardson, you are our second winner. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Our third winner is Heather Underwood. Heather Underwood, you are our third winner. Take Me Outside gift card will be on its way to you. And last but not least is Lindsay Gill. G with a G. G, like the fish gill. Lindsay Gill, you're our fourth and final winner. Okay, friends, it's been a Tuesday. We hope you join us for the next one. We have been doing STEAM and sustainability, and I am excited by it. Katie, Rachel, thank you for your expertise. Thank you to Rachel, who is behind the scenes just managing all the joy. Can't wait to see you for the next one. Thank you so much. Goodbye.